Hello everyone, how are you? Blessed to be here and I'm blessed to see everyone here. My name is Dr. Jacqueline Passley-Clarke. I'm the manager of advanced practice at Penn State Health for psychiatry for all of the APPs, which would include nurse practitioners and also physician assistants. So today we'll be having a session on joining professional organizations and memberships on board. And our speakers for today are Dr. Eugenia Millender. She's the co-founder and co-director of the for the Center of Population Sciences for Health Equity and an associate professor at Florida State University College of Nursing. She's also the current chair of the NAC. Dr. Jacqueline Payne-Borden, who is the Chief Nurse Executive at the United Medical Center, a 200-bed acute care hospital in Washington, D.C., and myself, Dr. Janet Passley-Clarke. In our discussion, we will describe the benefits of joining professional nursing organizations, as well as other professional organizations and boards outside of nursing. We'll also offer you examples of organizations that we belong to include local and state, professional specialty, and ethnic organizations, and describe our volunteer leadership activities and ways that you can become engaged as board members. Okay.
Payne-Borden, Jovial from Jamaica, and I'm so excited to be here. I am a fellow graduate, 2006. I can't believe the time has gone by so quickly. So I'm delighted to be here. Our Hawaii trip got canceled in 2020, so we have to do DC. Jeez. But it's a beautiful city. All right, so the importance of joining boards. I know a big thrust right now in the world, at least the world that I live in, they're talking about equity and diversity. And so historically, people of minority populations, they were never invited to boards, they were never on boards necessarily. And so what I have found when I got on a board, and I'll talk a little bit more, but when I got on a board, I still felt like I didn't have a voice, you know, because of the way I probably look or my accent or something. So there is like the obligatory, let's give her a place on the board. But we have to move beyond that, because even members of certain boards, you are there and you look like us and your voice does not count. But times have changed, and I'm really excited that times have truly changed. So I will talk about the boards that I'm on. So the one board that I've been on since 1999 was Maryland Board of Nursing. And so that was exciting for me. 1999, I was way younger than now. So that was amazing. I was the youngest one, like I'm the oldest one in here now. But I was younger, obviously, and very excited to be a part of the board. I thought it was a big deal, and it is in fact a big deal to be on a board. And so what I did on that board, it was an arm of the board called, the name has changed to Safe Practice Program. So the program is for nurses impaired by drugs, alcohol, or mental illness. Because the board decided that as a board, our nurses are valuable, very valuable. And nurses are people too. We're all little Jackie and Pat and Eugenia and all that before we got our titles. And so because of that, we're human. So we may have issues that need to be taken care of. So this safe practice is for nurses with mental illness, substance abuse. Let's not discard our nurse. Let's protect our community as well, the patients that we're caring for. And so I joined that board. I was very excited. Nobody told me to join the board, but I would get this nursing newsletter, a Maryland nurse, and so they were looking for nurses to join boards. And so I never turned back from that board. I've renewed a couple times. I had a break in between when I had my daughter, and then I rejoined maybe 7 years ago. going on that board, I felt really empowered. I felt empowered as a Jamaican American nurse who has an accent, but here now I'm really heard. You know, people are listening to me because guess what? I had that mental health expertise that they needed to help the nurses. So even though I wasn't totally into substance abuse necessarily, because we did have our specialty person for that, but the mental health piece. So I felt really good, even at a young age, that I had that experience. And along that way, here I was a fellow as well, and so I was able to talk about my fellowship, told nurses about it, and very proud of that piece. Okay, I have to do a little caveat for the nurses. When I was on the Maryland board, I am still on the Maryland board, there was a professor of mine from the Catholic University of America who, because I was on the board, where's the thing? I don't know, died? Hello?
We're hearing you.
Can you hear me?
We're hearing you.
Okay, so I think it,
Turned it off.
the flexible nurse turned it off. So anyway, because I was on that board, I had an opportunity to collaborate with my professor at Catholic University. Didn't know she was a professor then. She became one of my readers. But what she did for me was told me about, early in the program, told me about the MFP, Minority Fellowship Program. She's like, oh my goodness, join that program. I remember we had some funding issues, so I had to take a semester off, but I really didn't, because she said I could be a teaching assistant. So being on the board, we're serving the purpose for the board, however, look what came out of it. So that's what I have to say about Maryland Board of Nursing. A friend of mine reached out, a lot of this is word of mouth, that's why we're linking and talking and learning each other. Word of mouth, a friend of mine from New York, I went to school in New York, Brooklyn Jewish School of Nursing, my first school. In Flatbush, and my girlfriend called me up saying my sister has a company, Rehabilitation Systems Inc. She's a social worker by trade. She has a phenomenal business and she needed a director for her board. And she's like, you have psych experience. See if you can help my sister. I have been on that board, been the chair for that board on and off for the past 26 years. So again, the psych expertise, people know, people knowing what you do. I'll just, can you hear me?
No.
Oh, it's intermittent. Right, so people know what you do, word of mouth, collaborating, moving on. So she provides housing for homeless mentally ill in Prince George's County, Maryland, which is one of our counties that has the highest minority population and immigrant groups, not just from the Caribbean, but from South America, Central America, and so on. So I've been on that board. I feel very good about being on that board. I have helped on that board in terms of the nursing piece, the psych piece again, helping with training, train the trainer type thing. Even though I'm the chair of the board, I'm able to give that kind of input and it feels really good. Board of Governors at my church. Who would think of church? But of course, we're a minority population. We believe into our religion. We're big into religion. So I am on the Board of Governors, been on the board at least on 2 iterations. Board of Governors for our child care center. So it doesn't have to be directly what you're doing sometimes, but you can be so helpful. So I was able to, this is way back in maybe late 90s, help them revise their employee benefits. They didn't have health care. So being the nurse on that board, I'm like, this is super important. I don't care if they're minimum wage workers. And so I was able to give that kind of input. And one of my most exciting boards that I was on was Jamaica Nationals Association. And so it's not health care, but guess what? I was the president at least on 4 iterations. And because I'm a nurse, my initiatives were related to health primarily. I didn't want it to be so health heavy, but I ended up doing that. So I did a fashion show for the homeless veterans and women in Jamaica and here, and we raised money and sent it to Jamaica and here to a veteran organization. I was able to go to Jamaica when HIV was pretty rampant. Well, it kind of settled down, but by the time it got around to Jamaica, there was a stigma because a lot of it was with gay men. And Jamaica has been very homophobic, so my goal was to help decrease the stigma of the HIV/AIDS and infuse the homophobia business there, saying, hey, these are people too. So I did a documentary, took a videographer there, and did some very good work with that. Other examples, Jamaica Epilepsy Foundation, Cancer Society, and just the Children's Center. There's a children's hospital in Kingston that they need a lot of help in terms of communication and age competency, like cultural competency. The age, whatever age group the child is in, let's do some activities that would render itself more useful. So the sky's the limit with boards, and again, you can find ways to join a board that does not necessarily have anything directly to do with nursing, but somehow you could tease nursing out of it, healthcare out of it. That's what I have. Thank you, ma'am. It goes in, I know, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not operator?
No, it's not you, it's not you, it's not you at all. So buenos días, me llamo Eugenia Isabel Flores Millender, and I am from Panama, so talking about Caribbean congregation here, so I am so happy to be here. But one of the things, I just want to make sure that when we're talking about boards, is knowing, number one, who you are. What do you want to bring to the table, right? And being authentic to the purpose and the mission of the organization you're trying to join. So for me, I always saw myself, which I am, an immigrant who learned English as a second language, who always was misidentified as African American. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not who I am. I am indigenous, Afro-Latina from Panama. So I want people to understand there's a different experience that people like me have to face, right? Just like an African American from, let's say, a high income area to one who is from a low income area. You cannot put people in boxes. You have to talk about experiences. And to me, that was the voice I was bringing to the table. And with that voice, I only started to see the importance once I integrated myself into community organizations. So I was true to my research, to my practice, and to my teaching. As a mental health person, my research, my practice, and my teaching is all based in community settings, which is very different than somebody else who is doing more research in acute settings, is it geriatrics? Again, we bring different voices. Our lives, experiences bring different voices, and that is what makes you different, and that's what people really want. They don't want necessarily nurse or mental health experience, because there's many of us. But what else is that setting you apart, and that's really what you have to sell. So for me, again, it was a mental health nurse who had an immigrant experience of poverty and also resilience. Many of us have to also acknowledge that we are resilient and we are where we are right now because of people in our surrounding, our support group, MF3 groups like this, and that's the things that you have to really leverage. So I started with community organizations. Is it, for me, homeless shelters, immigrant shelters that deal with refugees. Became, not only a board member, then became a chair, and I'm still chair of many of those organizations. So I leverage my experience as a researcher, as a nurse practitioner, to elevate their mission. When you do that, not only does that make you, again, we're talking about self-care, that really motivates you, right? That helps you feel good about the things that you do. That helps you feel good about all the things that God has given you and sharing it with other people to make other people better. So in a way, for me, that's also a part of my self-care. Because when in academia, surrounding myself by very smart people, they always want to argue about very little minute things that to me are not important. When some people are struggling with food and shelter, right, healthcare, taking care of their parents, if they don't have the income, the resources, to me those are things that matter. right? So those things that make you humble, makes you actually motivate you to go back and do the kind of research that really matters. So with that, I understand now that I have the expertise that people don't have, and I start joining organizations. You know, for me, I'm currently on the board of APNA, the American Psychiatry Nurses Association. And when I did apply, I didn't think I was gonna get it, because there weren't many people that looked like me on the board. But the reason why I actually applied was because I wanted to have a person like me on the board. And through that experience, I actually have learned that they need us. They don't know the language. They don't know our needs. They don't understand our experiences. So when they're making decisions about who to include in this, is the conferences, it's us talking, like, listen, I don't see this topic in this conference. I don't see the issues of racism and discrimination in this conference. I don't see people that look like me chairing these committees. When it comes down to elevating and empowering other people, they do ask you, who do you think could be a chair for this committee? If you don't have people like us that know people in this room, I cannot say such and such will be a perfect person for this committee, right? If you're not at the table. So for me, I was able to actually nominate people from this group, from MFP group, to be part of certain committees, chairing committees, being part of those APNA committees. And since I've been there, I have to say that I have been one of the loudest voices related to, number one, the language that we use. You know, establishing a discrimination racism committee that is actually review all the policies that we have created to make it language sensitive, right? To be more inclusive, to be more diverse. And let me tell you, all those policies and procedures needed it, right? So when you're reviewing it, those are things that you're changing. When you're talking about, you know, not all Black people are the same, they don't know that. So you have to educate them. You have to educate them. And even here we are 2022, that is the conversation we have on those board meetings. Those are the conversations we're having. And I have to say that people didn't even know the difference between, you know, Afro-Latina and Afro-American, and, you know, those are the conversations I have to have. But if we are not at the table, you can't have this conversation. So guess what? They continue to make the same decisions after decisions after decisions. The same thing when it comes down to money. So these big organizations have money, right? How do they invest in money? So invested in social action, things that matter to us. And I'm talking about people that look like us, not just people that look like them, whatever that may be. So when you bring your voice, guess what? They have to listen when you're a board member, right? So those are the things that to me I have learned. In addition to that, one of the benefits, it looks great on your CV. It helps you get more board appointments. It helps you be a part of different conversations that you didn't even think you could be. So I was just sharing earlier today that Florida State University received $125 million from Florida, from the governor of Florida, which again, that's a whole different conversation, to establish a FSU hospital. That's huge in Tallahassee, huge in the state of Florida. Now, in the president of the university created this advisory board, who are made of vice presidents of research, vice president of faculty practice, dean of college of medicine, and Eugenia Millender, an associate professor. And you have to be honest, you look at it and say, well, hey, listen, what am I doing in this little group over here? But I'm the little person in the group. But guess what? They have seen that my conversations in every committee has to do with inclusivity, health equity, community engagement. So guess what? So the only person who could bring that to the table is Eugenia. This is because I'm doing what I know is the right thing to do. This is the thing that we have learned in this kind of group meeting conversations. Because sometimes those conversations are difficult to have. So if you don't have this conversation, definitely you don't want to have it for the first time in a board meeting, right? But here we empower one another to have those conversations, to read about what makes the difference, and then bring that knowledge to those boards. So again, know what you're passionate about, know yourself, and educate yourself. And don't be afraid speaking. It's how you present yourself. It's not what you say that makes a difference, right? You know what I'm saying? So again, they may be scared of you of what you're saying, but they know at the end of the day it's the truth. And you just have to stick to it and surround yourself about people that you can easily call. Say, listen, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? How can I make a point about this if I know it's wrong, but I just don't know enough about it? You have many experts in this room. Utilize your village. So again, that's how it has made a difference for me.
I'm gonna get up because nobody's gonna be able to see me. Okay. So everyone can hear me. So I'm coming at this in a little different way, all right? So I'm also an immigrant. And my mom is a psych nurse, and she worked at Shepherd Pratt in Baltimore for years. Worked in the jail system, corrections, and so it, it's kind of the blood, I guess. And when I was in nursing school, I couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, right? I said it was the last semester. I went to Coppin, HBCU, and I was like, what am I going to do? Because I don't really like anything, right? Okay, and so I had this professor, her name was Ruthie Hall, and I went to Miss Hall and I said, what am I going to do? I had to pick this profession. I have no idea. And she said, Janet, it's going to be okay. Last semester, psychiatry. Guess what? Okay, I actually like this, right? I was the only one in my class that went into mental health. Everybody says, you can't make money, you can't do this, nobody's going to respect you. I'm like, this is the only thing I like, so let me do this. So as I was going through the program, there was a program at University of Maryland that Dr. Vanessa Foy and Dr. Pat Kennedy, who was there at that time, brought me into. And they were doing a lot of research, and I said, I really want to be a part of this. And after I finished, went to grad school at University of Maryland and just kept going and kept going. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to give back because there were so many people who had given to me. And there was an opportunity to join the Maryland Board of Nursing. Go. And to get on, at that point, it was called the Maryland Commission of Nursing because there was this big nursing shortage. And Dr. Kennedy said, and at this point, I really wasn't thinking about that. I think you'd be good. You're young at that point. You're young, you're growing. I think we could use your voice. And there was not a lot of diversity back then. And so I became a commission member. And in a few years, she said, there's this vice chair opening up. I think that you would be good as a vice chair. I went, I'm going to nominate you, and I want you to end up here and do here and say this and say that. And I did it, and guess what? I got it, right? It was a stepping stone for me to move forward. It was a chance for me to say, oh, okay, I'm good at this. I may not be able to give back in money, but I can give back in time. So that's where my voyage started. And ever since then, I've always been on a board of something, a membership of something, planning something, doing something for others. I think that one of the most interesting things that I have learned is that if you don't put yourself out there, nobody else is going to, because nobody else looks like you in a lot of these organizations, okay? You end up being sometimes the only person of color, of diversity in any fashion or sort, and you really have to kind of advocate and put your voice out there. Recently, I got asked to be on the advisory board of Messiah College. No one looks like me, okay? Central Pennsylvania, not a person, all right? And this is maybe, I've been on the board maybe the advisory board maybe 3 years, still no one. Do I anticipate that there will be another person? Maybe, but I don't know where that person's coming from because there's not a lot of people that look like me in the area. When I took the position at my current hospital 5 years ago, in management for APPs, there's still no one in management that looks like me. So each time I go to a meeting, I'm there solo. It is sometimes a very lonely place to be, but is a good place to be, right? If something comes up that you say to yourself, you know, they always have these things about either you nominate someone or nominate yourself. Nominate yourself, okay? I'm really good at that. I have learned how to do that. Because you have to remember that on these boards, the likelihood that someone is going to look like you to nominate you is scarce. So the only way you are going to be able to put yourself out there is for you to do it. If you see something in leadership at your place of employment, whether it's in academia or clinical, ask your supervisor or say, I think I would be good at this. I do that all the time. Do you think that you all would be able to sponsor me for this program? What is the worst thing that can happen? They say no? Okay, what's the best thing? They say yes. I have not had a person say no to me. Do you know why? They're like, oh my goodness, she got a lot of gumption. I mean, who does that, right? I just did that about a month ago. And they said yes. Why? Because they didn't anticipate that I was going to do anything like that. She's so busy, she usually has too many things on her plate already. She's not going to do that. Yes, I am. Because I realized that the only way, and I'm going to say this again, that you're going to get anywhere is if you put yourself out there. If you wait for others to do it, the likelihood that that's going to happen is slim to none. I will also say that just because you are a nurse doesn't mean that you focus only on nursing. You have to broaden your horizons, and I tell that to my children, 30, 29, 20, and 17, okay? So when my children are moving forward in their careers, right, especially the older two, I'm like, well, what are you gonna do to get that? So some are in healthcare, some are not. And I say, what are some organizations, what are some boards that you can be a part of? And so I want you to look forward, not just in nursing and not just in healthcare, but put yourself out there. And I'm going to give you two examples. And I'm going to have to look down because I can't remember all these acronyms. Okay. So my daughter just went through, it's called the Associated Black Charities Board Pipeline Leadership Development Program. So what that does is she went through, I guess it was like 3 months of an evening class about what it is to be on a board and what is your interest? You know, what kind of board do you want to be on? Then after that finished, then they had a meeting and they invited all the people that wanted board members, or people, organizations. And then you get to meet them and they get to meet you, and then you and them have a meeting of the minds. You get on a board. The objective is within a year of you going through that program, you're on a board. What does that do for you? That gives you visibility. It may not be in nursing, but you're putting yourself out there. It's a huge resume builder. There's another organization called NASTI. Okay, wait a minute. It's the National Association of Healthcare Executives. It's a nonprofit. When I am saying black, I'm saying black, brown, Asian, I don't care, okay? Put yourself out there. These organizations are inclusive. They want you. You just have to put yourself in a position that you're visible. I would say that is the big thing, is be visible. Especially if you want to stay within nursing, think about your local community, your local nursing board. I'm still a Maryland nurse, but I'm a Pennsylvania nurse, so I still keep both of my, active. So for Pennsylvania recently, I just got on, I think it was their bylaws committee or something like that. Yeah, the bylaws committee. How did I do that? I saw an email and they said, oh, we're looking for people for this particular committee. What did I do? I nominated myself, right? Lo and behold, I'm on it. The likelihood that there will be someone else on that committee that looks like me is slim to none. I'm used to that, though. So what I'm looking forward to is role modeling, right? If someone sees me, they'll see themselves. So I would say to you, just don't look at nursing internally. Look at how you can broaden your horizons, because as you broaden your horizons, you'll actually broaden your horizons within nursing too, because more people will know you. And they will then say, oh, I think Dr. Clarke would be a good person for that. Oh, I think we can use your skill set in this way. So I want to encourage you to not just look towards your research interests, not just look towards your clinical interests, but look towards your interests as a holistic human being. What are the other things out there that make you who you are? And how does that, how if you feed that interest, will that help you be a better nurse, a better clinician, a better teacher, a better professor, a better researcher? That's how I think about things. Are we out of time? So are there any concerns, questions? And you can field it, sir. Okay.
Could you repeat the last two, those organizations that you mentioned again?
Associated Black Charities Board Pipeline Leadership Development Program. Associated Black Charities Board Pipeline Leadership Development Program. The next one is NACI, the National Association of Healthcare Executives. And by the way, they have chapters, NACI, all over the place, okay? You just have to find one. There's one in Baltimore. I know there is one in Pittsburgh. I think there's one in Philadelphia. It's not as if they are, just local.
Yeah.
They're all over. Find them, join it. They have all type of networking opportunities that you will benefit from. You never know who is in a meeting that can help you.
And I was going to add to that because, and I think that's an excellent point, getting out of your nursing box. Because one of the things that I did was join every county or whatever has something called leadership, like in start again. I didn't have a big mouth. I had a big mouth. Well, I was saying that it's an excellent point about broadening your horizons, right? So one of the things that actually helped me a lot was I did Leadership Palm Beach, which I'm sure you have leadership whatever. And this is actually people who are not nurses, right? It's just all leaders. In my specific class of Leadership Palm Beach 2020, we have lawyers, bankers, CEOs of whatever, and I was the only nurse. So I had so many questions about policy related to healthcare. And from that, I was actually appointed to a Palm Beach commission related to how you give money, bonds, to not-for-profit to build health, healthcare settings. Again, guess what? I'm proud to say I was the youngest by far. Everybody was at least 80 years old. At least 80 years old. They were all medical doctors. They were all white. Like, they should have been retired. So not only am I the only female, the only person of color, deciding who gets money to build nursing homes, health, I was like, why doesn't our community health centers know about this? So again, it put me in a whole different perspective. But again, it started with Leadership Palm Beach, which was totally different. So I completely agree with that.
I have a question. So when we're in these places and we're sitting on the boards, what tips or advice do you have of how to champion your causes or advance for equity? How do you raise that in the conversation, and how do you respond if you get pushback?
I would say that one of the things you have to, when you join something, listen first. Figure out what's going on.
Can you go to the mic?
Oh,
Thank you.
So when you join an organization, listen. Do a lot of listening first. It's probably not a good idea to do a lot of talking because you don't know anything yet, right? They've invited you onto this board, but you're a newbie, you're a neophyte. Listen. Once you've gotten the idea of, okay, what are the priorities here? There are always the written priorities and there are always the other priorities, right? Figure out what that is, right? Where's the power structure? There's always a person who legitimately has it and someone who really has the power. Figure out who those people are, right? And figure out how those people can help you with whatever agenda you have. Because if you don't have someone who's a stakeholder in what you want to do or what your particular emphasis is, you're not getting anywhere, okay? So I would do a lot of listening and then figure out who your people are that you can go to and bend their ear, who will listen to you and who will move your agenda forward. That would be my thought.
Okay, we have a question on this. Can
I
I
just
just
add
add
to
to
this?
this?
That's okay. So what I will add is, that's a very good question. When I was just started on the Safe Practice Committee, I felt like the committee did not understand the Black experience and had all these activities to help the nurse get well, but it wasn't applicable. It didn't make sense for the African American person. And so, but I had to sit back and listen for a while, build rapport, be accepted in the group before I took that plunge. And then I was an advocate for our people.
And you also have to understand, I am very transparent, right? I had to work on myself. Because when you sit on these boards, you hear some stuff, you're like, ooh, did he just say that? So before you come out, you have to learn that you have to compose yourself, think about it, take a deep breath. You know how they say don't write an email when you're upset? The same concept, because you're going to hear some stuff that comes out of ignorance, and that's what you're there for. So part of the learning process when you listen is also insight of your emotions, because when you respond in anger or being upset, they may not listen to you as much, right? So learn how to process that, and then even if it takes like an hour break after lunch, say, listen, can I go back to this? Now that you know what to say and you looked it up and Googled it or whatever it is, because you also want to have some kind of backup, background literature, whatever it may be, to express yourself, do that. But I know for me, I had to work on myself because some of the stuff that I was listening to was very disturbing and it was very bothersome. So while you listen, work on yourself, again, get the support, get information, and then speak up from a place of knowledge.
Okay, we have a question
Yes.
here, then one there.
When you expounded, that did answer the question I was going to ask about being on the board and making the change, because there is a lot of ignorance, like you explained. My comment to that was during my PhD studies, I took a leadership and policy course by Dr. Rebecca Patton, and she had us sign up for nursesonboardscoalition.org. And what it does is you put in your information and it goes through and you put in your specialty, and they actually have inquiries that come through and they send you an email. And the email will come to you so you can actually submit to be on boards that are like all different specialties, all different like locations, and it gives you all the requirements. So if anybody wanted to sign up for it, they do send them regularly.
Okay, wait a minute, I have her, right? And then I have,
Just so everyone knows, that's an ANA initiative, okay?
it is.
All right then.
Okay.
No, I was going to also ask about how to get more information about just getting on boards. I know, when I was looking at jobs out of school, one of the things that people recommended was to go to different nursing magazines. So like NAP, I'm in pediatrics, so it'd be NAP or organizations, and look and see like what jobs are open or things like that. So I was wondering, when you said Leadership Palm Beach, how did you learn about that? Was it something that somebody told you about? Did you just know about it through school? But I also appreciate you sharing that, because I think that's really important. But also being part of ANA, I know we get a lot of information too.
Yeah.
So my question, I guess, so I come from immigrant parents. I live in Oregon. So I was just having a conversation with somebody. There's not a lot of people that look like me in Oregon, as you can imagine. So I think it's really hard sometimes to show up fully, because you kind of get maybe, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but groomed in a way to present a certain way when you're in a room, because that's what people want to accept. So when you're on these boards, or you're in these, and I've matured now, so I know how to show up in a different way. But I think when you're young and you don't always have the experience to have that community to show up the way that you want, but you want to contribute, do you guys have any suggestions for that?
I will always suggest starting local. You know, get experience, you know your community, join those local organizations, work your way up to the board. You learn a lot. You also are going to be getting board training, when you're part of these organizations, and that helps you build a reputation. And the more you have those in your CV, the more people are actually looking for people with some kind of experience, right? And that's a learning process. Believe me, we all have to learn, what it is to be on the board the very first time. That's not something that we learn. I mean, I don't know if anybody in a profession actually learns that, but you learn by experience. And I would definitely say start locally, submit your names to these organizations that actually provide some kind of board training. And with that, you get better. I always say, I have one of my mentors who was an HR person, and she's always so calm and collective. And I said, how do you do that? She said, I went to a lot of training. It didn't come easy. That's not something you're born. A leader is actually they're not necessarily born, they're being trained. So believe me, we all went through the same things, just practice.
I think another thing I'll add to that, just coming off that comment, is find a mentor on that board. Okay? I don't care what the mentor look like. Okay? Find someone who you can have a conversation with, and then get their number, get their card, call them, go to Starbucks with them, okay? That person who has been there for a while will help you assimilate, will give you some credibility. It is important. You notice when I spoke about the people who influenced me. Those were my mentors. If I'm looking for something right now, or if I have a question, I'll call Dr. Kennedy, right? I'll call Dr. Boyd. I keep those relationships. When you have a relationship, remember that you will need that person at one point, and they will need you. Don't give up your mentors. But when you get on a board, find a mentor, keep that mentor, keep that person close, you'll get far, because they will show you the way. You'll get all the training, but they'll give you the nuances that you need to be able to be successful.
Hi everyone. Marcus Henderson. So I wanted to, stand up. Wanted to come back to your points. Well, one, I've been writing down a lot of points here because I'm like, yes, step 1, listen and learn. Step 2, build rapport. 3, find your allies. What's the power structure? And those who know me in this room know I use my voice when I have the opportunity to, because there's often people not at the table who share your same lived experience, or are advocates and passionate in the way that you know that this organization needs to be. And it comes with, there's always, well, we need more data, we still need to learn. And it's like, no, we have this information, we need to act. But then you're labeled as too progressive, impatient. We don't know enough, so you want to take us in a space that we're uncomfortable with, and especially what we're seeing now. So you get a lot of fatigue and burnout from, well, we need to move forward, that's why I'm here, but you're not listening. So now I feel like my voice, like you kind of like shudder in, because it's like, well, you're not listening, but then my fear is someone might not come after me who has this same passion. And if it's someone who's still going to toe the same line, then again, 5 years later, we're still having the same conversation. So how do you mitigate that feeling of being labeled as too progressive and impatient versus the time is now and we need to act, because you kind of feel voiceless at times. And like, how do you navigate that, especially in a lot of the spaces that we all kind of operate within?
I know for me, yeah, that's a tough question, but it happens. It's true. I have felt like that many times, and I have to say that for me, it has always the word innovation, right? So we have to be innovative, and other times it's actually moving away from that board to a larger, more progressive board, right? So, for example, if you're talking about homelessness, you belong to this board that is really not being progressive, maybe moving to a higher level, more national or international, that actually could develop some policies. Because what I'm also have learned is that there's a lot of stuff that's happening out there, but people don't know about it, right? And when you bring that information back somehow to a not so progressive board, they're like, oh, we didn't know about this, right? And even when you give them the data, other people within the same sector are doing the work, and you are now 10 years behind. So when you put the actual program project in their faces, there's really not much they could deny, right? But I'm going to say there's not all boards are going to be good boards, right? Some boards are just more resistant because there are more voices of them than of us. And that's why, we're trying to motivate each one of you guys to become more board members. For example, for APNA, when I first came, at least in the last, when I was elected, I was the only one of color. Now, I should be leaving in October, we have 2 of color. So it feels good just to see the progression, right? But it also took a lot of fight to say, listen, this person needs to be included. This person, what about this? What about that? And eventually, with time, the conversation has changed.
And I'll just add, this is a little different caveat. So I was in the United States Air Force. So you want to excel, you want to do well. This is what they talk about. But there was nobody to kind of help push me, even when I had ideas. So don't discount people who don't look like you. It was a Caucasian male, my manager, who's like, Jackie, I want you to be assistant manager. I want you to do this. You're not tooting your horn. You're smart. You're this. And I'm like, really? So I stood with Major Bennett when I was Captain Jackie. And I retired as a colonel who was offered on 2 occasions to apply for brigadier general. So I didn't look at somebody who looked like me. I didn't think people who didn't look like me would help. But because we know it's so difficult, this is why the MFP is so important as well. Because people who look like us are the people who are helping us. But don't miss an opportunity, though, if they don't quite look like you.
Okay, so we have a question over here.
Yeah, so I just want to say thank you, because I believe in divine intervention, and you all on the panelists gave a good word, because what resonated with me, and I took many notes, those of you in the room know that I'm a note taker, was divine purpose. And a lot of times in this field, you can specialize in something and still not know who you are and what you have been called to do. And so to hear you all say, explore your field, broaden your horizons, what came into my heart today was like, there are people who are in my program even who feel siloed, who are in the corners, in the shadows, because there are very vocal leaders in our respective fields and programs who take the lead. But an effective leader also plays everyone involved to their strengths and nobody to their weaknesses. And so I would definitely take these gems that I wish we could get in our programs back to my fellow colleagues, because it is incredibly discouraging to be a minority at a predominantly white institution or in, white-dominated fields. And so to see people who look like you and can share your lived experiences, you are right. It does inspire you, and it does give me fuel to go back to my program halfway through and say, I got to keep on keeping on, because along the way, you do get discouraged, and you do feel like, as this gentleman said, I'm the one always speaking, and so am I making myself a target? Is anyone, hearing me? is what I'm saying falling on deaf ears, but it's all about divine appointment, divine assignment. You've all been called, we've all been called. And so we just have to tap in and tune into our individualized purpose in this lifetime and let Creator move through us as we serve marginalized populations, but humanity in a holistic way. So thank you. I needed to hear that. It was awesome. Thank you.
I wanted to say one thing as we go across the room. I forgot your name. Marcus. As you were talking, I thought about something. When we are on these boards, sometimes we have a brilliant idea. The light bulb goes on, right? And we think that this would work. The problem is we don't have anything behind that except our passion. It is important that when you put an idea forward, you have done your homework, right? You have that information. So if someone asks you a question, you can answer it. If you then say to that person, I have to get back to you, that tells that person, you really don't know what you're doing. So a lot of times we come up with these brilliant ideas and we have nothing behind it. It's just brilliant and we've heard about it and we think that would be great. But we haven't done our homework ourselves to be able to bring that to the forefront so we can talk about it intelligently. And sometimes even if we have all of that, maybe it's just not the time. Maybe we just plant a seed, right? And maybe you have 10 things that you want to do, but maybe you only get 2 done. And that's okay. You can hear me. Because that's okay because you plant that seed. So I would say one of the things is do your homework. Don't come up with a great idea that you can't support. Because no one's going to listen to you at that point because they know you haven't done your homework. Correct. Okay.
Okay, we have another one.
Oh, gosh, sorry. Can you guys hear me okay? Yes. Okay. So to your point, one of the things that I would suggest is maintaining your passion while also maintaining patience, right? And be prepared to have the same conversation at least 5 times. And it might be like 5 times over the course of 5 years. And the only reason I say that is that because sometimes an idea can be brilliant and it can be fantastic and it can be revolutionary, but it, like we're saying, it just may not be the time for it. It may not be ready for it. Like for us in our minds, like mental health, of course, yes, priority all the time, every day. But to tell you the number of meetings that I had to have with the school district over the course of a number of years to establish a mental health program within a school so that kids were getting mental health counseling, 4 years. But then year 5, they were calling my office saying, hey, can you come do services for the kids here in the school? And now I have an exclusive contract with the Brandywine School District. So the reason I say that stuff is more because be the pain, but like, so you're the thorn in the side, you're speaking up, you're the advocate, you're all that stuff, but you'll also be the person that they'll remember to come back to because you were the person that was speaking up before. But while you're passionate, you'll have to keep in mind that sometimes you're gonna have to be patient. And we can't always direct the time that people will make mental health a priority. It should be a priority. Like that's like a non-issue for us amongst us. It should be a priority all the time, but it isn't always. But making it one and making it one in your conversations, making it one in your language when you speak to other people, though people will remember you and how you talk and the way that you interact and the way that you are with people so that you can be the person that they do come back to when it is time and when they're ready.
We have about 4 minutes, so I wanted to make sure that we wrap up.
Yeah, one of the things I was thinking about too is because we only have so much time and burnout is real, I do think it's okay to say, what is your commitment to this? You know, like you invited me as part of this board. If you do have an idea or there's some type of agenda item that they're saying that they're committing to, what is the commitment? I know I am on a board within our organization for providers with leadership. One of the things that we implemented is kind of like like a timeline. Okay, we're introducing this at this time. What are we expecting to happen in this time, and what is the outcome that we want to have? So I just think as we are trying to self-preserve in some way so that we stay healthy, it is important to know where to put our energy and have things like that available.
Okay, so my question is a little bit different. I am talking more about the practice setting. And as the speaker before talked about, fatigue, burnout, and all those things that happen, and being able to speak to your own experience and to tell people in your supervision, well, I don't think this is right. This is how this policy is affecting me, and I don't think this is right. But you keep getting the same thing, that this is what I want you to do, and this is the way I want you to do it. And you're the person that has the experience. What do you do in that case?
I think if you're in, okay, so that is near and dear to my heart. I am definitely in, and I'm going to make this short because we're coming up on 12 and lunch. I am in an academic setting, and change is slow, okay? Very, very, very slow. One of the things that I find with my direct reports is, what is it that they want, not necessarily what I want, and how do I try to make that work for them? All right. There are things that 5 years ago, when I started this institution, that I thought would be no-brainers. They still haven't happened. I have done my homework. I have done PowerPoints. I have done almost everything except jump on my head, okay? And that's why I said some of the things that I would like to have done for my direct reports have come to fruition. Some of them have not. I think, especially in an academic situation, it is baby steps. You're not going to get everything. And sometimes you believe that that leader is not actually advocating for you. But there's always that behind the scenes, that there's that advocating going on if it's a competent leader. I will say that. But you may not see all of it, and it's not something that can be shared at that time. Sometimes there are baby steps to get someplace. So, and sometimes the questions aren't, the right questions aren't being asked in situations. And so what I try to do is, as those baby steps occur, to give feedback, to tell folks what is going on, all right? But it doesn't necessarily mean that what you think should happen is going to happen, because remember, we're in this huge organization and everybody has a say, right? Nursing is there, but everybody else has a say, and we have to get everybody else on board. And so sometimes it doesn't happen the way that you want it to happen. It doesn't mean that that person isn't advocating for that to happen. It may just be in increments that are palpable to leadership at that point in time.
Okay, we're going to take, okay.
And I'm just going to say, so you're talking about practice specifically. I think that we are in a whole new world for nursing, especially when you talk about practice. So I am one of those that do not believe being put in the box, right? I am very innovative. If you put me in the box, I'll probably become more trouble than anything else. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. You will be in uncomfortable situations often. So if you have your practice and they're not doing the way you want to, create your own practice. Develop the practice the way you want to, the way it works for you, it works for your own population. And that's what I would say. Now we have opportunities to have autonomy practice, develop your own practice, be integrated, be part of somebody else, whatever you want. So again, don't let policy and the way an organization works designate or guide where you want to be. If you're not comfortable there, get uncomfortable, but again, you have to take a chance on yourself and create your own.
So we're going to have two more statements before we're going to end, and and Dr. Pat Bradley be the last, and I'm just going to say, I think what we've heard is that we almost, as younger professionals in nursing, that we hear that we grow into the ability to be able to sit on boards. I mean, that takes time to sit there with that discomfort and everything, and that happens. Secondly, those of you who are going to the academy, I really encourage you to try to get on IRB boards. They're amazingly frightening without our presence. I've been on 2, and we are really needed on IRB boards. And so if those of you are going into academia, then you do that, okay? I would encourage you guys to do that. Okay, and I'm going to have Miss Dr. Bradley to close us out.
Thank you so much. There are 2 surveys.
She's going to say something.
We have 2 surveys?
Yeah, that need to be completed after this. And, okay.
So each session is going to have a survey? So you're going to receive an email from Dr. Urande? It's already there. To ask you to fill out the survey. And right before you fill it out, I just want to say we can acknowledge in person. Do we have some great presenters? We asked just the right people with the right experience to come and plant seeds. And so, Marcus, if we say anything to you, you are a seed planter. Yes. Everyone's saying, what does Marcus Henderson think about that? And they're asking you to speak. They're asking you to give voice. And when you do that, what you're doing is you're planting seeds that will then be watered and nurtured by you and others. You're also asked to come, and so you can bring someone with you. Each of us have learned to, as we open the door, we bring someone along with us. We have several sessions that are going to be coming up where the conversation is going to continue. I thank all of you for being here and for lending your voice to the experiences of what we're doing.